Ciao. It's so important to have WWDC this year. And while it cannot possibly feel the same in here without you, I can assure you that we have a great show ahead of us.
I was telling you before. I was telling Jeff Gamet. I'm sorry. I'm telling Jeff Gamet what I told him before. I should tell people that Jeff Gamet is here and who it is that I'm talking to when I say I was telling you before. Jeff, would you say something so that people know I'm not just talking to myself?
Ken, you are not talking to yourself. By the way, everyone, Ken Ray, the man.
Stop it. You're not allowed to do that. Don't do
sorry.
that. Yeah, have me on your podcast, and then you can do that. That's fine.
Okay.
We're here now, though, so you can't. I was telling you before. I went to IKEA. As people hear this last weekend now, because things are a bit more certain, right? I mean, we're not through the pandemic. We're not through COVID-19. We don't know variants. We don't know. I mean, while we know that the vaccinations are good, we don't know for how long and when we'll need them again and what it's all going to look like and all that stuff. Nothing is ever certain in this world. Death and taxes, I believe, are the only two things that they say are, certain in life. And yet it's starting to feel like a little more like, you know what? I've needed a bookcase for a while. I'm going to go ahead and get one now because it feels like, tomorrow is not, it doesn't feel as much like it could be the last day. Of course, anyone could. This is really uplifting. I'm glad I started off this way. Here's my point, though, Jeff. Here's my point. If you had asked me 6 months ago whether we were ever going to have like a full-fledged flesh and blood, everybody get on a plane, WWDC again, my answer would have been no. We're about a week, less than, as people hear this, from the next WWDC, which is going to be virtual. I'm like 50-50 now whether the one after that is going to be. I think it might be sort of a hybrid. I think it might be a blend. But having been out to drinks last Friday night for the first time in a year and a half, close to, and having been to a giant store, which is one of the last giant stores I remember going to before the lockdowns began, before the pandemic. It's weird because it felt weird, but the weirder part is it didn't feel as weird as I thought it was going to. I don't know. Do you want to lay a bet on next year, or do you just want to skip to this year? Because that's really what I wanted to talk to you about, is what your expectations are and hope for next week's WWDC. But do you quickly want to lay odds on 2022?
I'm with you on 2022. I think it's going to be a hybrid. Apple has learned a lot about doing remote, and they are really good at it now. But there's a lot of value in the whole in-person part. And there's the whole serendipity thing that simply can't happen remotely. And that's important for Apple and developers. So I think in 2022, we will have a hybrid thing. Maybe the in-person part will only be a couple days as opposed to a week. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's hybrid next year.
It'd be really good. Like maybe somebody could do like a Macworld or something. Because here's honestly what I'm trying to figure out. Yes, there is much to the serendipity. There's a lot that's really wonderful about getting together with everyone. I'm not sure what the return on that is for Apple, though, because they are going to... It's kind of like the last Macworld when Phil Schiller stood on stage and said, yeah, look, it's great to see all of you, and we will see like 20 times as many people today in our Apple stores as we will see here all week at Macworld, which is why we're not doing Macworld anymore, or one of the reasons anyway. Does it maybe behoove Apple to go ahead and keep doing WWDC as a virtual thing, but toss a bit of dosh here and there so that they can have the bigger events where people can get together? Or is it for a third party to say, you know what, people miss hanging out and we can make a little do-re-mi on this deal. Why don't we have a big event that's not maybe Apple gives its blessing, maybe Apple sends a few people, but Apple doesn't, start limiting again the number of people who can participate.
Well, the hybrid thing takes care of at least the limit on who can participate, because As long as you're a developer and you have an internet connection, you can participate in WWDC. It's just the in-person part that's different. And as far as can other people or companies step in and fill in the void for the in-person part, well, Apple is already okay with all of the boutique conferences that popped up around WWDC and ran concurrently.
Yeah.
So there's a precedent of sorts there, and there's an opportunity for Apple to maybe coordinate with some of these other events to make something that goes along with WWDC.
It's kind of a funny idea. You could have an alt conf with no conf. There's no conference, but there is an alternative conference if you want to. Alternative to what? Use your imagination. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. The one that used to be over there. Right. So next week is actually a thing. It's Thursday as people hear this. Monday, of course, is going to be the big WWDC, a virtual keynote presentation, whatever you want to call it. Probably I'm going to go ahead and ask you now if you want to come back next week and give a response, because next week will be, Tuesday through Friday will be different people talking about what they thought, what they saw, what they liked, what they didn't, all that stuff. You want to come back next week for one day?
I would love it.
Okay, groovy. In the meantime, let's talk about what you see coming.
On a side note, what would you have done if I said no?
Well, I'd have been like, wow, it's too bad because I was going to have cake. But that's fine. You'll miss cake, but, at least you're here. And then we'll talk about you when you're not here.
Yeah.
I'd have rolled is what I'm saying. I'd have rolled.
As if I would have said no. But anyhow. Wow. Okay, so I'm sorry. You asked me something, and then I threw that back at you.
Well, no, it's fine. Well, I'm curious. So I'm wondering what you're hoping for from next week's. First of all, what you're expecting, and second, what you're hoping for. Like, I saw somebody say that they think there's going to be an M1X Mac, more, like a new version of the Apple Silicon, and they'll announce that. Maybe they'll release it, maybe they won't. On the one hand, people say, well, it's not a consumer show, it's a developer show, but they used to release new Macs at WWDC, or talk about them anyway, because, who uses those? Developers. Mm-hmm. So, are there any hardware things? Are there, thoughts on what's coming in the next versions of macOS, iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, all that stuff? Anything truly new? What are you expecting / hoping for from next week's announcements?
Okay, well, first, everyone needs to keep in mind that the big keynote, that's not for developers. That's for the public. That's for the media. So getting announcements that may be tangential to what developers need, mm-hmm. It's no surprise to see stuff like that happen at WWDC keynote. Now, the keynote that comes after that, which is just for developers, totally different thing. All right, so what do I expect? Of course, we're going to see the normal things that we get every year. We're going to get a preview of what's coming in the next version of macOS, the next version of iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, and watchOS. Did I miss any OSs?
As far as the established ones that we already know about, I don't think so.
Okay. I think we are also going to get something which isn't historically normal for Apple, which is a bit of a hardware roadmap. And I think we're going to learn more about what's coming with the next versions of the M series processors. And we may get a MacBook Pro announcement, or maybe not. Seriously, it's so hard to say with that. But I think we're definitely going to learn more about the processors, and I would put a MacBook Pro announcement more than 50% likely.
Okay.
And then what would I like to see? I would like to see Apple introduce a quality display that isn't $5,000.
Okay.
And I would like to see Apple tip their hand, because I think they're holding cards close to their chest with the new iPad Pro. I want them to tip their hand and give us a better idea of what they're really going to be doing with this new iPad Pro moving forward. Because they've given us a tablet that has the horsepower of a laptop. Mm-hmm. So what's coming for that. And it can't just be, hey, you can run LumaFusion faster. It's more than that. So I want to see what's coming with the tablet operating system. And I want Apple to excite and delight me with whatever those announcements are.
The one thing that I saw somebody say, and I find it hard to believe, but I also want it so much that I just want it, is some clear idea of what's happening with augmented reality, whether that's going to be their glasses or their mixed use headset thing that's both AR and VR. Because they tease the heck out of the AR thing so much. And augmented reality, I mean, as good as Apple's presentations are on the iPhone and probably on the iPad Pro, I don't know. But as good as Apple's presentations are on the iPhone, they still suck because you have to hold up your iPhone. You have to hold up this piece of technology between you and that thing, which, I mean, is both tiring and cumbersome. At the same time, it's really, I mean, is that the kind of thing you were talking about? No, because you said you thought the roadmap was about the M1 or the M series processors.
Right.
Is that too ridiculous to think about, or is that the kind of thing that we might hear, far enough ahead, the same way we heard about Apple Watch 6 months before we could have it, or the same way that we heard about iPad several months before we could have it, or iPhone for that matter, 6 months before we could have it?
Well, okay. Yeah. I like where you're going with this. Now, as far as if we were to get an announcement about some new augmented reality platform, I think if we got that announcement, it wouldn't be so much the same way or the same reasoning that we got, say, for Apple Watch or iPhone. And that's because of Apple wanted to control the message. So they wanted to let us know, here's what's coming, as opposed to regulatory filings revealing what's coming. For something like this, I think it would be more of a thing like when Apple introduced the whole app thing for Apple TV. And they said, here's your developer kit so you can start making Apple TV apps. Right. I think it would be like that. It would be like, okay, so we're doing this thing with augmented or virtual reality where you're going to have this hardware that people use. Here's the developer preview of that hardware so you can start making everything for it. Now, as far as the way it is today, yeah, it's clunky, it's cumbersome, and yet Tim Cook explained beautifully why we're dealing with AR the way we are right now. And it's that if you want people to get familiar with AR, to use AR, and to want more of it, you don't put up a barrier where they have to buy something new to be able to experience it. Yeah. You give it to them on the hardware they already have, on the iPhone and the iPad.
Yeah. Sorry, the reason I was laughing is because if Apple did release a developer whatever, just all the articles from TechCrunch and Gizmodo and everybody about how ugly the thing is will be hilarious, because of course it won't be the thing that's actually introduced. It will look like like a battleship, and then when we actually get to buy them, it'll look more like a Lamborghini, I would think.
Yep. I think you're absolutely right. And they'll totally misrepresent the hardware because that's what they do. I mean, when Apple released the M1 developer kits, it was an iPad scrunched into a Mac Mini case.
I love that. I love when, and people are like, I can't believe they're going to give us something so low powered. And I was like, well, they're not.
Right.
They're giving you something that low powered now, but I mean, that's so you can write on it, and then it'll sing when it comes out. And who knows, if we're lucky, maybe it'll also dance.